Oh, just the location for sure.
The culture got me the most excited.
The culture is very different than it is here.
I always wanted to go back to my roots.
I love food. I thought what type of music, TV shows, their stage work.
I've never been before. I heard a lot of good things. I like a lot of Italian cinema.
I'd been at Oxford once before, and but only for a day. So I was so excited to go back again.
The planning process was just like time, and each month I knocked out something.
And I've been to Asia several times, so I feel like it's a nice change of pace.
Filling out the paperwork, getting my visas, making sure I had enough money in the bank.
I don't know any Italian at all. I just started.
Feeling a little bit nervous and intimidated at who my classmates would be.
When I got to Melbourne, I actually hitchhiked my way to my school because I had no idea where I was going.
Well, the first time that I studied abroad was actually in high school, and I got a little taste of France, actually. I went on a very short 3-week summer excursion with one of my high school French teachers. So that's sort of what made living there later in my life more of a reality. Typically, many students will go through a program that their university, their home university in the States will organize for them. What I did was basically just switch schools for a year. And I was still, paying tuition in the States, but I was going to school abroad. So it was very much an independent experience. I had to find my own housing, sign up for my own classes, make all the sorts of decisions that you would make when you move to a new place. I love art, and I wanted to learn the French language. So for me, being in Paris, I was just hoping to see and do as much of both of those things as I could. And obviously Paris is known as this just center of the art world in many ways. The museums, but also just culturally, there's such a high value placed on art and creative expression. The biggest concern I had was the language barrier. I was terrified of actually going and speaking French with locals. I was horrified that my accent would just be this crass American coming over, like an American in Paris type situation. But fire safety was never something that I had heard about, and obviously it ended up being a huge part of the experience. At the time of the fire in 2011, the building where the fire happened didn't have a single smoke detector. There's no fire escape, fire door, any of the precautions or equipment that could have bought us some time.
When a student goes into any kind of residential facility, the first thing I would encourage them to do is think about fire prevention. Avoid using any candles, to know how to extinguish a fire, know about cooking safety so that they don't accidentally start a fire while they're cooking. But sometimes fires start outside of their individual unit, and so the second thing I would encourage them to do is to make sure that they know at least 2 different ways to leave their apartment. And we are creatures of habit. But if they could think about a second way to exit the building, including not using any elevators, we want to use stairwells, not elevators, then they have a couple of different options for escape.
The night of the fire was a Wednesday night. We were actually wrapping up our program. We wouldn't typically be gathering, to go out on a Wednesday night, but everyone sort of had this celebratory mood, and it was another student's apartment. What is really a typical Parisian apartment? It's tiny, it's cramped. You walk up a narrow staircase, a narrow wooden staircase, and we were on about the 4th floor. Around about 2 in the morning, it's late, so we were getting ready to leave. All of a sudden, there was a big boom, this huge noise. And we look around, we can't see anything. Everyone's tired and it's late and we don't know what's happening. So somebody goes to the door of the apartment, which leads to the hallway. The situation in the apartment is that there's a group of people, 9 people, all students, and we'd just been sitting around this table, and to my left there was a window that was open. So as that person opened the door, there was sort of a backdraft of air that sucked all the smoke in from the hallway and just completely enveloped us.
Smoke is what is deadly. Most people do not die from fire, they die from smoke inhalation. And it only takes 4 or 5 breaths, ventilations of that smoke into your lungs before that begins to do damage. It could put you to sleep. It impairs the ability of your body to exchange oxygen, and that's what's deadly.
This is heavy, heavy, thick smoke, and it's jagged in your lungs when you try to breathe it in. I feel my skin just start to burn. I was actually being burned by the smoke, by the intensity of the smoke. So I never saw a single flame, not once. All of the burns that I sustained from the fire it's just from the smoke. We get to the window and, people start putting a leg out and then the other leg, and that was it. It's not a choice we made. It was an unconscious decision to have a few more seconds of fresh air.
C'est donc l'information de la nuit, cet incendie, on vous le rappelle.
Many residents were sleeping when the blaze broke out on the stairwell.
Thursday, Jasmine, along with 4 others, died trying to escape a fire in an apartment building in Paris.
The place where we fell to was in this courtyard, and it was sunken a level below the street. We were stuck down there. When I woke up, I look up at the building and I can sort of see these flaming pieces of debris are falling down. But at that point, I had been severely burned. I sustained 2nd and 3rd degree burns on 50% of my skin, along with a fracture to my spine and a fractured ankle. So I was really beaten up. And that was when I saw Jasmine. And when I saw her, that's for me when it was just all over. I just lost it. I tried to shake her and wake her up. I was yelling for help, yelling her name, looking around, trying to see who else is here or is coherent or can do something, but just nothing. I crawled over to this corner and I just waited, screaming for help. I still don't understand really how anyone found us, to be honest. To even walk in front of this building, you have to pass under an archway and go through an alley. So you can imagine, how are you gonna fit a big fire truck through an alleyway or this archway, which is really the size of, a double door? Because it was so inaccessible, even that courtyard being sunken below street level, I actually had to climb out of the courtyard myself with a broken back, a broken ankle, and my skin on fire. And I was laid out on the sidewalk and given oxygen, and the last thing I remember is being loaded into the back of an ambulance. I had been placed under a drug-induced coma for a couple days, so I didn't actually wake up, until a few days after the incident. I can't feel my body. I was on morphine for about 6 weeks because of the pain, not being able to fully grasp what I had just been through, and not knowing concretely what had happened to the others, what had happened to Jasmine and the other friends of ours who were there that night. I was sitting in my hospital bed and somebody brought me my laptop for the first time since the fire. I got on my Facebook and it was overwhelming. There's this page for the Jasmine Jahanshahi Fire Safety Foundation. I was speechless.
While we were concerned with the memorial service and trying to process what had happened, we started getting literally hundreds of phone calls and questions about what people could do to help, which was not even a question we had answered for ourselves, I think. In retrospect, the way the foundation started was very much in Jasmine's spirit. I think in those first few months, my thought was, let's just do something to make people feel better. I didn't actually think, okay, we can change the world. We can make an actual difference and save people's lives. When I think back to certain conversations I had with Jasmine, every time I expressed a sentiment like that, she would counter it and say, like, well, someone has to do this amazing thing, so it might as well be you. And that was always her attitude about life. Our mission is fire safety generally, but we've spent these last couple years honing in on study abroad programs specifically, and making sure that study abroad programs across America, when they send students to other countries, are taking fire safety into account. There's one conference every year that focuses on safety, and we were amazed because this is, a 3-day conference on safety abroad. And they talk about water safety, making sure you don't drink contaminated water, food safety, don't go out late alone, things like that. But before we got there, no one talked about fire safety. So that's something we brought into the conversation.
My name is Louise Jahanshahi. I'm Jasmine's dad. From day one, we focused on awareness, education, and the technology. The orientation programs that they have for these students, we provide them to the universities. They also have a brochure that talks about fire safety. We made it short, 4 pages. There are posters on our website. They have targeted 25 countries, and they put the emergency numbers of each country. As you know, not everybody is 911.
When you travel anywhere outside the US, it really is just as easy as bringing a smoke detector with you.
We ask the students, if you go to a place that you're lacking smoke detectors or safety ladders, contact us.
I would encourage students, if they're looking for a place to rent, for housing, for their education, to make sure of a couple of things. A smoke alarm, which is inexpensive but can save your life, is essential. It could wake you up in the middle of the night. Make sure that the room that you're renting has a window large enough for you to escape from, and then make sure that you have a clear path of egress from your sleeping area all the way to the outside.
We also recommend that if you're going somewhere where you're not so sure about the fire safety infrastructure, that you don't stay higher than the 5th, 6th floor of a building, because fire trucks can't reach you. When you think there's a fire, you don't open the door. You feel the door with your hand, and if it's hot to your touch, you don't open it, because that allows the fire to come in much more quickly and gives you a lot less time to get to safety.
A huge instrumental part of my recovery has been being able to be involved and work with the Justice Foundation. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
I studied abroad in London about 6 months after the accident in Paris. And the first thing I did was make sure there were smoke detectors. I still ordered a ladder from our online store to make sure we had another escape route if something happened. And then I sort of thought, okay, well, I did my due diligence. I mean, the odds of something happening are so low. But something did happen. 3 months into my time there, in the middle of the night, the smoke alarm went off. I got really frazzled and told everyone we needed to get out, and it didn't matter if it was just a false alarm, we still had to get out. And so we opened the door, and immediately I can see smoke like rising from the bottom. I think we were on like the 5th floor. And I see like if we start running down the stairs now, we'll be able to make it out. We all get outside, and a bunch of people start, laughing and saying like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. All I'm thinking of is that this is all it would have taken to save Jasmine's life, is a $20 smoke detector that could have alerted her about the fire and could have helped everyone get out in time.
In many countries, there is no fire safety. People don't think about it. In this country, fire safety is everywhere, smoke detectors everywhere. People assume that everything is okay, so they don't talk about it. Our job is to bring it up. Every year, there are 300,000 American students travel, and 25 of those countries we have targeted that most American students go to. We try to reach those students, and we bring out the issue of fire safety and awareness.
Our foundation strongly believes that studying abroad is a really important thing for Americans to do, and that's very much in Jasmine's spirit. She was a world traveler. She loved to experience new things, meet new people, keep an open mind wherever she went. And so we really believe in encouraging Americans to go abroad. We just want to make sure when they go abroad, they do it safely and that they know about all the risks and that they can be smart about them.
There are a lot of things we have to do, obviously, day to day, but I always recheck and regroup myself with Jasmine's thought. I always ask myself, if it was Jasmine, what would she do? Jasmine liked organizing things. All people to her was equal, regardless of their status. She always used to tell everybody, play hard and study harder.
Jasmine was ambitious in that respect. So there was nothing that would stop her from going to this museum, going to that museum, going to a show, going to see everything and anything.
I counted one time, she traveled to 19 countries in the age of 20. South America, she traveled to Europe, she traveled to Asia, she traveled to Tibet.
You wanted to go for a run with Jasmine, and your idea of going for a run was a 1-mile run, and her idea of going for a run was a 10-mile run on the beach. And you would try to negotiate with her and tell her there was absolutely no way you could run for 10 miles on the beach. She would just insist you could, and she was right.
She reminded me every day that, at the end of this year, we were gonna look back on the people we had met and the experience.
I would, stop and lean over and say, there is no way I can keep going. And she would say, yes, you can, just keep going. And then I would do it. I would do things I just never believed that I could do. That's a spirit I try to keep with me. Jasmine really believed that people could push themselves and do more than they thought possible. And I'm really grateful that that's something that stayed with me.